All right, let's go ahead and get started, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. My name's Eddie Finlay. I'm the sales manager here at LBMC Technology Solutions. And today's presentation is the executive's guide to selecting an MSP, a managed service provider. So I'll be your host today and moderator. Thank you all for joining. Just some quick things here. All lines have been muted, of course, to eliminate background noise. We do welcome Q&A as much as possible throughout this presentation. We will be addressing the questions towards the end of the presentation, but definitely welcome them throughout in the chat feature at the bottom. We also will be sending you this webinar today. We'll send you a copy of the webinar today. And we please recommend that you submit the survey. Well, I think there's a survey. But getting started, I wanted to give you all a little overview of LBMC Technologies and who we are. Established in 1996, outside of being a fully integrated IT solutions provider, we also help in other areas of business too, with ERP systems, CRM systems, and just helping automate business processes in general. If you have a lot of spreadsheets, we help with business process automation. Our team has about 120 people. And again, our main line of businesses is managed IT, which we'll be talking about today. When I say ERP systems, that's Sage Intacct, Microsoft Business Central. And then we also specialize in Microsoft Dynamics CRM. And again, business intelligence, that could be everything from Power BI reports to automating your business processes. All right, and outside of what we do here at LBMC, one of our strengths is our family of companies. So as you can see on the slide here, we have companies in many different lines of areas: advisory and business consulting, audit and assurance, data insights. Any of these areas that you would be interested in, we can definitely connect you with a representative from those lines of business. But it has been a strength of ours being able to as a true partner, being able to offer services in other areas of your business too. All right, I have the privilege of announcing our presenters today, who we are very proud of. First off, we're going to have Robert Powell, and Robert is our Chief Delivery Officer of our Managed IT Services team. He joined in 1998, brings about 25 years of experience in technology, system architecture, implementation, and IT management. So Robert, take it from here. I think you're muted, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. So we've got a quick view of our agenda here. So what is a managed services provider, an MSP? And then we'll assess an MSP's experience and reputation, and then some key indicators that we think are important for a business, and then some services that you should be receiving from your IT provider. And then we'll have some polls that are going throughout this as well. All right, so poll number 1, how are you currently handling IT support? So we'll just give that a couple of minutes and you can go ahead and make your selection. And then we'll look at that really quickly. We won't go into in-depth or detail on the poll results, but we will put it up for everybody to see what the responses were. All right, so we've got a mix here of everything completely outsourced to everything, or having a mix of in-house and outsourced IT support, which we would call a co-managed solution. Thank you. All right. So first off, partnership. Your IT team, whether outsourced or not, in our opinion, should be a true partner with you and your business. We've been providing IT services here at LBMC for over a quarter of a century. And so we've seen a lot of comments coming from our prospective clients. And some of these that you see on the screen here are some common ones that we've seen. Like a very frequent one is that they talk down to us and they talk down to our users about not understanding technology. Or when we ask for documentation, they will not provide it. Or the IT company doesn't truly understand our business and what we do. And so each one of those, and those are just a selection, there's many more that we've received, but we think each one of those are important areas. Obviously, we don't think that a IT group, whether it's in-house or outsourced, should be talking down to their users, because everybody has their expertise and where they kind of excel in their knowledge areas. So your IT team should operate as an extension of your business. They should intimately understand what you do and how technology can help you be more successful as a business. While customer service is not the stereotype for IT people, I can think of some old Saturday Night Live skits where that was the case. It should be the norm for your company, and you should be treated as a priority. Security. I'm sure everybody's pretty familiar that security is the biggest factor in IT right now. New companies are being breached every single day by ransomware. We see new companies that are breached every day by phishing attacks. There's a concept called data exfiltration, which continues to be on the rise. So even if you are able to recover from a ransomware attack, they may still steal your data. So, and then if you don't pay the ransom, they may release your data out to the internet, which can be just as harmful as getting ransomware for a lot of companies, because it means a loss of reputation. What we're seeing now is the biggest targets for the bad actors is small to mid-sized businesses. So the SMB space is the biggest target for security attacks. The expectation from the bad guys is that the SMBs have a lower security level and their users are untrained and nobody is watching the gate. So there's nobody monitoring the security situation within the company. Additionally, on top of that, cyber insurance carriers now require maximum security with features like multi-factor authentication, endpoint detection and response, zero trust solutions, strong password policies, patching, and etc. So what we're seeing is even where maybe the bad actors have been driving security elevation, now the insurance companies, the cyber insurance carriers, are now driving that just as much as the bad actors are, because they've had so many payouts. It's just not the same space that it was 25 years ago, where maybe you thought you could get away with no antivirus solution or something pretty basic. Now you need top level security, even as a small business. And that's where having a company like LBMC is important, because they can help fill in those gaps and provide that more enterprise level recommendations and guidance that a small business couldn't necessarily bring in-house. Okay, poll number 2. So we already discussed breaches are happening every day. Essentially, what tools are you using to provide threat intrusion prevention? And give it just a little bit longer and we'll show the poll results. Okay. Review. Okay. So 0 to 12 months. So most everybody had a security review recently. Thank you for putting those in. Okay, backup and disaster recovery. So this is not necessarily a security item, but it's something that I really consider closely related to security, because at the end of the day, if everything else is breached or fails, you're dependent upon a backup and disaster recovery solution, a very solid one. So you should have a solution in place that is resilient and not impacted by the bad guys. So we've seen many times where a company might have what they think is a solid backup solution, but it sits on the same network as all their production data. And then when their production network gets compromised, they also get into their backup solution. And the bad guys don't want you to be able to recover, because then you won't pay the ransom. So they delete all your backups, or they encrypt your backups. So having an isolated and protected backup solution is extremely important. Not only that, it should be tested regularly. And that means not just maybe downloading a few files, but it also should be spinning up servers on-site and off-site to make sure that these are fully functional systems. You can even go as far as having user testing, say on a quarterly basis, to where the users can log in and they can perform their day-to-day actions within the applications in the recovered systems to make sure everything is working correctly. And then on SaaS solutions, so maybe you're a business that you have everything that's hosted in the cloud. And so you think, okay, I don't have to worry about the backup, but Microsoft and Google, some of the key players out there in the SaaS space, they're not doing a whole lot of backup of your files that are sitting out there in the cloud. At most, you can restore 30 days back. If you need to restore any further back than that, you're typically deploying a third-party solution to provide more backup retention, which we would recommend. So this is this is talking further about evaluating your IT services, your MSP's metrics. So different areas that we think are important as to how you evaluate your MSP or your IT services provider is what are their employees saying about them? So, maybe you expect me to say, what are their other customers saying about them? Yes, that is important. But first, I want to start with what their employees are saying about them. So this is a great metric on the health of a company. You can check out sites like Glassdoor. There's other sites where employees can post on how their company, whether it's a present employee or a past employee, what their experience was within the company. And we see that as a great metric for how well this customer is going, or I'm sorry, how well this MSP is going to provide service. So low employee turnover usually means happier employees. Happier employees typically translate into happier customers because they are then providing better service. Plus, as a customer of an MSP, if they're constantly having employee turnover, it makes it really difficult to work with them, because in a sense, you're constantly retraining them on how to provide support to you and learning new faces. So then what are their clients saying about them? Of course, you can check Google reviews. There's other apps online that'll give you some ideas to what customers are saying about MSPs. And then you can also ask for their reports, like out of their ticketing system. So what is their customer satisfaction score out of their service desk solution? What is their net promoter score? What's the likelihood that their customers would do business with them again? What is their client turnover rate? They should be able to give you these metrics. And then, of course, you can always ask for client references. All right. Employee and business application expertise. You want an IT services team that has highly trained employees that can adequately support your business. You can ask them about their training regimen and frequency for certifications. You can ask for their list of certifications. And while certifications don't always translate into expertise, it does demonstrate that they are willing to invest in ongoing training and education for their employees and ultimately for you as their client. And then I would also add, kind of speaking to a previous point, that employee longevity at the company and in the industry can also speak to a level of high expertise. I think we all know that good communication is the key to any healthy relationship. And that goes for your IT services relationship as well. So you can ask your MSP about how they interface with their customers in different roles and how they communicate with their customers, along with the frequency. So that could be different roles like service desk. So how does the service desk communicate with you on request? Most of the time that's going to be through tickets, but there are other ways to do that as well. Senior technical expertise, like a primary engineer or admin that might come on site. Sales interacts with you, how their virtual CIO, if they have that position, interacts with you on a regular basis. We think that communication should be timely, frequent, and include scheduled touch points. Like I said, it's the key to any healthy relationship. All right, so we've got different scenarios here. And I think we saw this on the poll as well. We've got both of these represented. So a fully managed MSP versus a co-managed situation. So fully managed is where the MSP is providing all services from help desk to senior admin to VCIO. And then co-managed might be that they're filling in specific gaps in different areas. So we've got clients in both of those areas, and both of them can be very successful relationships. This wheel that you see on the screen represents a lot of the different services that we provide and that are common in the industry. But in a co-managed situation, it can be very customized. So your MSP might only provide patching services, or they might only provide email or hosting services. Whatever gap that you need filled, your IT services provider should be able to do something kind of custom that just kind of fills that gap. And then this is my last slide, other than a poll. We've got, there's this group called Channel Futures, which is a MSP support group. And they provide services like educational type services to managed services providers. And they also do a ranking once a year. So they rank the top 501 MSPs. And this is something that we usually apply for and make. So these are a sample of what they look at from a requirement that you have expertise in these different areas. And everything that you see checked on the screen is what we fulfill at LBMC. But it's important that your IT services be able to check off a good number of these boxes. Again, particularly around security, because security is one of the most important things right now. Okay, so this is poll number 3. And we are making the pass over to Jason Barnes to take on the next half.
Yeah, I wanted to introduce Jason. So Jason is our CRM and Microsoft Power Apps practice manager. And he joined LBMC over 8 years ago and has over 22 years experience in technology, specializing in CRM, Microsoft Power Platform, and general solution consulting. So Jason, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Eddie. Appreciate it, Robert. Request control there. All right. So again, thanks again, Robert. So just to reiterate, we really do appreciate everyone taking the time to join us. We certainly hope that our session is going to help provide a few takeaways that will help you select that right technology partner for your business. As Robert explained, there's a lot to consider there. I'd like to add to that I've been in the business in this industry for well over 20 years, and from my experience, probably the most critical way a partner can help a client is to help them keep pace with technology. And we all know how fast technology changes. I mean, it's just all the time it's something. So it certainly can present a real challenge, right? At LBMC, we keep up because we're required to. All of our consultants go through required annual certifications and training, and making sure that we're all prepared to support our clients. So it's something we take very seriously. Our solution that has been very, lately, I should say, we've been very busy, catching clients up on what's called Microsoft's Power Platform. So I'm not sure how many people in the audience today are familiar with Power Platform, have taken a chance to learn more about it, but hopefully today we'll do just that, because this new platform really has changed the way that our business applications are going to live and breathe within our organizations. It's vastly different going forward. So today we really do hope that we can help you understand sort of the power and capabilities of this new platform, and how as accounting professionals you can leverage this new platform to help your organization better reach its organizational goals, and become more efficient, and certainly improve things with process automation. It's really what a lot of this is about. Now for here. So for many decades now, I would say is at least as long as I've been in the industry, business owners and leadership, they've used what's called the golden triangle, or the PPT framework. And one thing I wanted to point out is that at LBMC, the PPT framework really is sort of at the core of how we deliver support to our clients. We truly feel like a partner level approach to how we work with our clients is the right way to really help them achieve that PPT balance. So, as you can, with any triangle, of course, if you have one side that's weaker than the other, the whole triangle can collapse, right? So it's a great way to think of this sort of balance between, the processes, the people, and the technology that really drive your business. And one thing, of course, to point out is that any good MSP, any good technology partner will focus on understanding, its clients' processes, of course, right? Kind of how they work and operate, who they are as a company, like they're more about their people, If you don't really understand their processes or their people, it's very hard to properly, sort of implement technology solutions for them, because many times you could just be guessing. So that's the approach that we feel is most important. So what I like to do is, talk about, where this need for, Power Platform really came from. And that's because of a common struggle that we saw or have seen for years. And that's that, I got to say, though, this really does hit home for me, because sorry, it's a little click happy there. So I do see businesses struggle with this every week, and it's not something that makes me happy by any means. I do think that in some cases, some businesses kind of get into this forest for the trees sort of mindset. They constantly struggle with these, dated and in many cases unsupported applications, right? It's like they can't even find hardware to support some of these applications and these homegrown systems sometimes. And what happens is I like to say that, the status quo becomes really trustworthy, and in many cases far too trustworthy. So that's really kind of at the core of this. And one question I want to ask, of everybody here is, if you have a process or some data in that system that you're using now, that software or spreadsheet, if it's tracking this, this data and it's critical to your business, why would we be using perhaps decades old technology to manage it, right? It's mission critical. So I think sometimes, again, it gets to complacency, or we think status quo is good enough. Hey, it does what it does. My favorite, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, if that's true only if there are, not, greater gains to make a change, right? So, and I think it's probably possible that some of you are sitting there thinking that, oh shoot, that's us, right? I hope not, but I'm willing to bet there's probably one or two that are sitting there thinking that. But so let's talk about, and I should say we will be talking about a few LBMC client projects here in just a little bit. Some great examples of some of these struggles that businesses are facing, and how we can take these old and dated systems and databases and replace them. And we'll talk about how Power Platform, of course, help them do that. Now, before what's called low code common data model type solutions like Power Platform and Dataverse, before those things, the predominant way, was to create a custom application. So you had to go out and you had to hire some developers and programmers, maybe a solution architect to kind of help frame out what they were actually needing to build. The challenge is, though, that sort of traditional software development, it can be kind of time consuming and an expensive process, and sometimes, it could take, years to really get through that development cycle and get through testing and QA and end up with some sort of final product. And then, of course, you still got to maintain it year after year. You're perhaps having to change hardware or maybe modify or improve that system. So it's a costly thing. So that's certainly a driver behind this. Now, I want to be clear, there's always going to be a need for custom development. That will always exist. There's always going to be some highly unique, use cases out there that will require custom development. But, those instances really are not the norm, honestly, at least that we see these days. And that's really where Power Platform and some of the tools that are available in Power Platform become much more beneficial, helpful, a lot less expensive. So that's what we'll talk about today. So let's really get into, talking about, I think we missed a slide here, so let me go back. There we go. So first off, let's talk about, sort of what sits alongside Power Platform and really is sort of like the underpinnings. Microsoft Dataverse, some of you may be familiar with Dataverse. What it does is essentially provides that sort of like back end or, backbone for all of the applications that sit in the Microsoft 365 cloud. Such as, you're probably using Office 365. Some of you may be using Dynamics or some of the other applications that are part of our Power Platform. So Dataverse really enables users to leverage that Power Platform directly against the core data. that already resides in those different cloud applications that I just mentioned, right? And it can do that without the need for like custom integrations custom connectors and whatnot. We call this, so in our industry, this is called a common data model. It's like I have all these different applications and services that all sit on top of this back end, this common data model. And so that's what we call Dataverse. And it's really important for businesses to pay attention to this, because it is how modern business applications are going to be delivered and supported well into the future, right? And if we're not paying attention to it, we risk sort of being at a disadvantage against some of our competition that can adjust to different maybe changes in the industry, different initiatives and things, and taking advantage of the latest technology. So that's certainly something to really think about. And let me get back to my original slide. All right, so let's really talk about what is Power Platform. So Power Platform, and I'm just going to read it straight off the slide, is a low-code, high productivity platform that includes the ability for users to build and link applications, custom sites, virtual agents, leverage AI, which is not on there, and of course build business intelligence reports, right? So for example, using Power Platform, one or two people in a matter of a few hours can create a custom application and deliver, sort of the same process automation and support that you might have seen through traditional application development, but they can do it in a fraction of the time and deliver it to the users in fraction of the time. So that's certainly advantageous, right? So what I'd like to do now is we'll talk a little bit about the applications and services that are part of the platform. And, I like to call this, so all these possibilities, right? So I guarantee at some point, if we have, folks that are leveraging Microsoft 365 now, part of the Microsoft Cloud, that you're already likely using one or a combination of some of these, right? Or you will likely be doing so in the next, maybe 6 months, because we see, a huge number of clients, making transitions to leveraging some of these applications and services or processes and services. So first off, with Power Apps, that's sort of really, in my opinion, the probably the largest service as part of the Power Platform. What that's going to allow you to do is you have this sort of really this interface that's really easy to use. It provides that sort of like rapid, fast-paced development environment that, again, you don't have to be a developer to do these things. These are low-code tools, right? And they can, like I said earlier, they can build those applications in a matter of hours, right, instead of weeks or months. And the one thing to keep take away there is that Power Apps, it does allow the users to simplify a lot of several of those layers that I talked about earlier, and all those steps that are involved that you have to go through with your typical software development. Some of them you still need to do. Of course, you still have to have a solution architect to sort of design and lay out the requirements for what this new app needs to do, right? But nonetheless, it does strip away a lot of those other layers that you used to have to deal with. Power Automate. Power Automate, that is your process automation tool. This is how we make life easier for businesses and its users, right? So it's a service that's going to allow users to streamline, those sort of repetitive tasks or mundane tasks. They can do that by using these sort of workflows, these automated workflows. And you can also support sort of data exchange and actions between applications and services. There's really two flavors to Power Automate, or really categorically two ways that it helps support automation. And that's with digital process automation and what we call robotic process automation. And I'll sort of describe the two. Digital process automation is that the data would live strictly digital. It would be an event such as maybe a customer record in the ERP system, like maybe you're using GP or Business Central or some other ERP. And what you would like to do is have Power Automate update the CRM system when a change is made in your accounting system. automatically without, necessarily needing for a traditional, kind of expensive custom integration. That's a great use case for Power Automate. Another, or an example, I should say, of robotic process automation would be something like running a batch invoice, invoice batch in your ERP system. It's just a number of clicks, right? Open this application, click this, click that, and then open that, and then generate a file or generate a document, right? Or process that batch. We can actually take those steps and through robotic process automation, automate it where it requires no user intervention. So that's a pretty helpful, especially with accounting folks. Robotic process automation really is making a big difference in kind of, I say, improving lives, right? Because they can actually take some of their PTO that's been stored up for years. So anyway, robotic process automation is definitely something that you will learn more and more about as we kind of go through this. With Power BI, again, most of you are probably using Power BI. It's obviously a business intelligence tool. It's going to allow users, administrators to create data queries of their data, linked to different sources and systems. It's going to allow them to analyze it, maybe share data through reports, dashboards, other things like, there's like visualizations that you can create, like that have slicers and ways that you can slice the data as you look at the report of the dashboard. And I will say that with Power BI, as far as my team and my experience, it is absolutely sort of the fastest growing service in the Power Platform. There's millions upon millions of users using Power BI every day. It makes up a significant amount of what LBMC Technologies does between our CRM and our business intelligence practice. We do a lot of work with Power BI. So definitely something we will have some subsequent webinars and events on Power Platform, including Power BI. So I definitely recommend everybody make an effort to maybe attend some of those. Power Virtual Agents, just a kind of, quick high level example of that. Have you ever, booked a ticket through Southwest Airlines and had to communicate with them afterwards, right? Or even just had a question. They have probably the most complex chat, AI powered, virtual agent there is, right? You will not realize that you're not talking to a live person. It's a very powerful experience, or virtual agent experience. So that's a great example of a virtual agent. And of course, the Power Virtual Agents is just Microsoft's service. It's sort of automated, chat and digital response service. So if you have a high number of common questions that you get from customers, a chatbot is an excellent way, very efficient way to handle large volumes of repeat questions. That's exactly what it's meant to do. And then of course, there's a lot of data that nowadays that shows that a lot of folks would prefer just to have that quick chat experience rather than having to wait in a phone queue just to ask, a couple of questions, right? What's your return policy on this or that, right? Or how do I, order a new shirt, whatever. These are things that a virtual agent can certainly help with. Power Pages is the low-code platform that allows users to create, host, and really administer websites. So this is like a website engine, right? And the benefit of that is that with Power Pages residing in Dataverse that we've been talking about, so that common back end, it allows it to more easily interact with all your other applications. So if you're using Business Central, you're using Dynamics 365, you're using Teams, you're using SharePoint, all of a sudden, all of those things can interact with your website. Again, with no custom integrations. So that's a pretty powerful thing, that all these things can now kind of live and breathe in the same environment. It makes it so much easier to handle data exchange between different departmental applications. So that's just one of the things that we see also growing quite a bit. We have 2 or 3 projects for Power Pages already sort of queued up for this next quarter. Now, I would say that I saved the AI Builder, which I consider the most exciting, for last. AI Builder, in my opinion, has the potential to really, it will revolutionize the way that businesses process information. I want you to think of these bots, okay? We're just gonna call them bots, as digital employees, right? They're employees, they're digital employees that we can train to perform repetitive tasks. And I don't mean just simple things. They can learn how to do their job better and more efficiently as they do it. So tasks like processing documents, like invoices or receipts, things that might be a little mundane, but and have typically required a human eye. You can train these AI, these bots to process them very effectively. One of the things that we do, that LBMC does, is that we help clients train their bots. It's a service that we offer. So if, for example, AP processing, you get X number of invoices a week, right? An AI bot can read those AP invoices, extract certain information from them, and be able to either pipe that directly into your system or route it for approval. It can extract balances and of course who the invoice is from, invoice numbers, things like this. And it can do that without any human intervention. It captures the data, presents it to you. Another fun little tidbit, I was noticing just a month or so ago that everyone's getting in on the AI bot thing, right? So it is the new trend. It's here to stay. But I thought it was real funny is that perhaps the next time you go through a Wendy's drive-through, you may actually be placing your order with an AI bot that's going to be interacting with you as you place your order. So I thought that was pretty neat. Long story short is that we can take these time-consuming sort of repetitive tasks that are typically have needed a person to interact with, and a bot can do it literally in seconds. So that's something that, in terms of efficiency and automation, that you can't beat. All right, so let's take a quick poll. And I will let Matt help me with this. There we go. Everybody wouldn't mind answering this one for me? Talking earlier about how our mission critical processes are they really being properly supported? And in 9 times out of 10, you ask a business that, they're going to have 1 or 2, maybe more processes that they feel should be more automated or should have a better system that's managing it. So, all right. Thank you, Matt. So a little all across the board there. Very common to see that hardware becomes a constraint with leveraging these older more dated systems and applications, because it's harder to find hardware that will support them. Dated systems, of course, yep, and then legacy systems that you kind of kept alive that really could be replaced rather easily with a more modern solution. Yep. All right, excellent. All right, let's keep going. So one thing I'd like to do now is talk about some recent Power Platform projects that we have performed, just to kind of give you some ideas as to really how powerful this can really be. So these are just a few examples. We worked with a nonprofit that needed a donation, or we had to manage donations. We'll take a look at their project here in just a minute. I've got a few screenshots to kind of show what we did for them. They replaced an Access database. Work orders, it's obviously a very common thing for service organizations to need to be able to track a service, a work order, not just a support ticket or a request, but an actual work order that requires parts and service allocation and resource allocation, maybe scheduling, of course. So these are things that go into a work order. Equipment maintenance, we have a couple of manufacturers that we've worked with recently that have needed help, especially around the quality management teams and programs to maintain their certifications. They've got to keep up with their equipment maintenance. Workplace safety, sort of the HR initiative, right? Being able to properly report any concerns or issues with workplace safety. Quality tracking, like I said, these are things. We had a client that was using an older, more dated software that they wanted to replace because they were paying, I forgot how many tens of thousands it was. I think it was like $10,000 or plus a month. I'm sorry, a year. And all they did was just record measurements on their product. Literally, it was just recording measurements. They felt that they were way overpaying for what they really needed. So we were able to come in with, a Power App and easily replace that at a much lower cost, fractions of that, of what that other application had cost them over the years. Another great example was like a site survey app. We had a client that they provide services to churches and trade shows and events where they need a lot of AV, audiovisual equipment and setup. And so they needed something that would allow them to kind of quickly go into a space like a convention center and take pictures of the stage and sort of the area where they would need to be deploying this audiovisual equipment. So we created a site survey app that allowed them to do that, to take pictures and record captions. And then that got tied into how they would track their job and quoted the job. So we had a quote tool that went along with that site survey app that allowed them to generate estimates from it. So that was quite add a lot of efficiency for them. As I said, one of my favorite projects, just because they were great. I mean, we get to work and have the privilege of working with a lot of great clients. I think Charity Motors was one of my favorites. I have to admit, they had a 20-year-old Access database, 20 years old. And the lady that originally helped them create that Access database could not retire because she was the only one that knew where the skeletons lived in that Access database. I feel so sorry for that lady. You could tell she was ready to retire and enjoy time with her grandkids, and she couldn't because she was keeping up with this Access database. So we helped them, replace that. That database was tracking like car donations. What they did is they accepted, vehicle donations and provided those vehicles, like refurbished vehicles, to low income or families that needed reliable transportation. Great mission. They're based out of I think Detroit, Michigan, or maybe a suburb of Michigan. So they, again, great mission. And we created a Power App that replaced that Access database. It allowed them to track all their, their donors and all the organizations that those donations, because basically the donor had the option of either several organizations that Charity Motors would make a donation to on their behalf based on their vehicle that they were donating. And then they would turn around and we had to support a sales process. So we did just that. We actually configured the app to support the sales process. And then, of course, not only that, but they wanted everything to be paperless. So they had stacks of paper that they actually had to UPS to us because they said it would take probably a couple of weeks to scan it all. So they literally sent us a box full of all these different multi-part sheets and things that they were using in their process. So needless to say, Charity Motors is a big advocate of LBMC. They're big fans and they're very happy. Power Apps helped them do that. This is just a quick example of the old Access database that they were using at the time. So you can see it was not a simple, application. It was definitely a pretty well built Access database. So I have to give that young lady credit for her creating this to begin with. All right, and then of course you can see the modern take. This is the new Power App interface. So we went from this to this, which we were able to use a process ribbon to support and help track the progression of the donation process, which they loved because it helped them visualize where the donation was in the process. That was a big request that they had. And this is an example of the sales transaction. So last one, and then we'll move on. So Southern Technologies needed a work order solution. So I was mentioning this earlier. And they were coming from a very old, 15 plus year old SharePoint on-premise deployment. And, we think of SharePoint these days as more like mainly document management, document storage. It can still be used as a shared document depository that the company can access. But in the past, you could actually just create a custom website from it, essentially, that could store information and documentation. So they were using that to track work orders, what they call service records. Sorry, I'm sure that. Tracking the products and components that they needed to service the work order, the warranty information, on that particular purchase or piece of equipment the client had. And then, of course, tracking the different repair codes. I think they had it was several thousand repair codes. So they had a very elaborate, very complex work order management process that they needed to help support. And so we got them off of SharePoint, and they're using a Power App that does all this now. And again, very happy. And of course, paperless, completely paperless. All right. So I think I just have 2 quick slides, and then we can move on here. In case anybody is interested or has any questions about our Power Platform licensing, it can be licensed multiple ways. There is a sort of a single app model, an unlimited app per user model, pay as you go. So very flexible options there. But the thing to convey here is that it's not expensive. That's really the great thing about what Microsoft's done here. They created a very powerful platform, no pun intended, but they've made it at a price point that really any business can justify, right? And the services, that LBMC would come in and offer, we're not talking about something that takes, months or years to develop. A lot of times we come in and a client will have a need for a new, Power App or custom app. And we're in there for a month, a few weeks, sometimes a few days is for that matter. So definitely approachable by any business. So if it's something you're curious about, please reach out. We're happy to answer any questions you might have on that. We do have a webinar series coming up. So maybe visit our site again and take a look at the Power Platform webinar series that we have coming up over the next 3 months. All right. So Eddie, I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So poll question here. In addition to IT security and Power Platforms, as mentioned, we support other areas of your business. And so it'd be good just to know if you want some information on any of these other areas in these choices. All right, Matthew, I think probably enough time there. All right. So today, first off, thank you for all of your participation. I know it's lunchtime. Hopefully you got some good takeaways from today. Today we discussed what is a managed service provider, how to assess a managed service provider's experience and reputation, the key indicators of a managed service provider's commitment to the latest technologies, which is very important, and then what services you should be receiving from your managed service provider. We have a few minutes left. Again, we have a Q&A area down there. I'd love to get some questions. I have one question for each presenter because I often, when I'm talking to companies, this is for Robert. When I talk to companies, as Robert mentioned, security is a really hot topic these days. And so a common question is, Eddie, when is too much too much? What is enough? And so as far as security solutions go, we want to be secure, but we obviously know there's a lot of options out there. What do we know? How do we know what's best for us? And so, Robert, question for you is, how would you answer that question?
Thank you, Eddie. So we really take a very consultative approach with our clients. And there's always a basic level that you need to start out with. And like I referred to earlier in the presentation, that level is a lot different than what it might have looked like 10, 15, 20 years ago. So where in the past you might have a small antivirus solution that was your main protection in the environment. Now we're looking at this at a kind of a multi-tier or multi layered approach with security. So kind of the basics you would need would be a very solid endpoint protection solution. Windows Defender is actually pretty good. A few years ago, it was pretty terrible, but now the Gartner actually rates it extremely high. So Windows Defender and a solid solution to manage it and to update it and to watch the gateway is a very solid solution. And then we would layer on somebody watching the solution as part of that. And then other things you need to be doing is patching, and most of the threats come through email these days still. So ransomware, phishing, all of that mostly comes through email. So we need a very solid solution that is watching your email gateway. And then on top of that, we can add all kinds of solutions, zero trust solutions that are making sure that you're only running the applications that you need to run, and those applications are doing what they're supposed to be doing. We can watch the logs for each one of your servers, your applications, pretty much anything that creates logs looking for some kind of security attack or so something that's odd going on in the environment. That's called a SIEM solution. A lot of this is dependent upon compliancy requirements in industry levels. So somebody in the financial industry or the healthcare industry, we might put at a higher level with adding more components on top of that than we would a really basic business. But hope that answers the question,
Yeah.
Eddie.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And then Jason, just a quick question, with all the different programs companies have, do we run into issues integrating with non-Microsoft applications?
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. That's a great question. Actually, no, far from it. There's quite a number of connectors that are available for applications that fall outside of, Microsoft's world, you might say. So there's thousands of connectors for applications that would not be a Microsoft solution or application. So, and there are ways to, if there isn't a connector, there are still ways to, connect and integrate with applications that may not already have an established connector.
Okay. All right, we're at about time. I think there may have been one question that came in that we'll get back with you on, Stephen. But thank you for everyone's time. Again, we'll be sending you a copy of this presentation, and you all have a wonderful rest of your day and rest of your week. Thank you.